Hi, it's John, and just before I get back to discussing that air crash, the mid-air crash from July 31st, 2020, um, I want to show you more evidence of what I was referring to in the previous video regarding the clocks going ahead by 5 minutes at the end of September 2022. I probably already presented some of this evidence in a former video in this series. I mean, I don't have everything memorized, what I have, put on and what I haven't. Occasionally I go through it and I keep notes on some of it, and so that I keep, so that I keep it in fairly good order. But sometimes I do make a mistake and I repeat something. But this is probably what I'm saying here. I probably already mentioned on some previous video some of this evidence showing the times showing showing that the clocks did go ahead by 5 minutes, showing some evidence of that besides my own word, but even though I probably did on some former video, I think it's merits repeating, because I just brought up the topic last video again, and so then I just wanted to present more evidence of that, that the clocks did indeed go ahead by 5 minutes, and this end of September 2022. So these are tweets from Twitter, when it was still called Twitter, and this first one is from Lyndon, September 29, 2022. You can see she says, actually, I don't know if Lyndon's a he or she, but either way, the person says, yes, oven and microwave were 5 minutes fast. And then another one's from Karen, also September 29, 2022. And she's, wondering, why her clock was 5 minutes fast. And then here it just says, the picture was taken at 11:57 on her phone, but that's just a picture. The time she was referring to was on a clock, on a plug-in clock, because it only affected plug-in clocks, right? Because they keep time by counting, like I said before, the pulses from the electrical grid, the 60 hertz or 60 pulses of electricity per minute. That's how those clocks keep time. I know that from research and which I did afterwards, yeah, and because they talked about it on the radio shortly after, and then I did the research, so to verify it. So that is indeed how those clocks keep time. The ones that they plug in the wall, they count 1 second for every electrical pulse that they receive from the electrical grid, and they receive 60 pulses per minute. Hence, they're called 60 hertz. So this other one was from Keith, also September 29th, 2022, and he says also same 5 minutes fast. So his clock was 5 minutes fast also. And here's another Keith below him, a different Keith, same date though, September 29, 2022, and he says clock on oven and microwave were 5 minutes fast this morning here too, right? So yeah, so if I didn't already present enough evidence before about that, and I think I did, but if I didn't, well, then I just did more there, and if I repeated it, well, again, I think it's a big enough topic that it merits repeating occasionally, because I think it was a hack. I think, like, as I explained before, I don't think it was an accident. I don't think it was a power fluctuation, because of too many people using appliances at the same time or anything like that. I think that it was a hack, as I explained before, and that's why it was 5 minutes, because I was born in the 5th month, in the month of May, etc., etc., all the stuff I said before. And that just verifies, what I said before, that it did indeed happen. It wasn't just my clock. It was a lot of people's clocks in the province of Newfoundland, Canada, and that was just, more proof of it there, those Twitter shots. And, of course, there's, if you do your own research, you can find out plenty of it, from Twitter, Facebook, radio programs that talked about it. Lots of people in the province of Newfoundland, Canada had that happen to their clocks in end of September 2022. Right. So back to that crash, the mid-air crash from July 31, 2020. So here is the time that it happened, and it happened at 8:26. Now, this is a recreation, computer animation recreation based on the information from the cockpit of one of those airplanes. So this was done after the crash, obviously sometime after the crash. So this is what the view would have looked like from one plane to the next. The next plane, I guess, is in that yellow circle there. This is what the view would have looked like from one plane to the next 5 seconds before the crash, okay? So if you add that 5 seconds, 5.3 seconds to 8:26:27 a.m., then the crash happened at exactly 8:26 and 32 seconds Alaskan time, okay? Now, that's important to remember because let's look at Alaskan time now. Alaskan time, well, when it's 3:18 p.m. in Alaska, which is when I took this a couple of days ago, when I took this from Google, a screenshot, to see the Alaskan time zone, right? So when I did this search, it was 3:18 p.m., so it came up as 3:18 p.m. in Alaska. Of course, I wasn't in Alaska. I was, here on the other side of the continent in Newfoundland, Canada. But anyway, that's the time that it was in Alaska when I did that search. And then just so remember that when it's 3:18 in Alaska, at the same time next door in the Pacific time zone, next door is BC, because BC is next door to Alaska, as I showed in a previous map. When it's 3:18 in Alaska, it's 4:18 in BC. Okay, most of BC is on the Pacific time zone, and the Pacific time zone is 1 hour ahead of the Alaskan time zone, as I just showed you. Alaska was 3:18, Pacific is 4:18. Now that's important because my brother, for many, many years, lived in BC, in the Pacific time zone, and he probably still does, and he probably did when that crash happened in 2020. So back to that. So again, it happened at 8:26 a.m. or 800. That's actually the 24-hour time that they're using there. So it's 08:2600 hours, also known as 8:26 a.m. So that's when it happened in Alaskan time. But at that very same time, as I just showed you from the time zone differences, at that time when it was 8:26 in Alaska, it was 9:26 next door in BC, where my brother probably was. So I believe my brother chose Alaska to do so many of these crashes because it is right next door to BC, and he knows that I would probably notice that as a potential so-called coincidence when I would hear about these on the media. And that's important regarding the time that it was 9:26 in BC when it happened, because his birthday is 9/27, okay? I think I mentioned that somewhere before in these videos. If I didn't, well, I just mentioned it now. Plus, I mentioned it on my website, if planehitshouse.org. His birthday is indeed on 9/27, September 27, okay? And a lot of these crashes and some air incidents that weren't crashes happened in the last couple of years, happened either on his birthday or in the birthday zone. That includes air crashes and surface vehicle crashes. Because like I said before in some other previous video in this series, like I said, I think he gets into an extra crazy, energetic mood around his birthday, right? And then I think he's more likely to do this stuff, maybe because he gets extra drunk around his birthday. I don't know, whatever the reasons are, it just seems that more of these bizarre crashes, whether they're air crashes or surface vehicle crashes, like, cars, trucks, buses, trains, it just seems in the last couple of years, more of them have happened around the birthday zone. In other words, on his birthday or within a few days on either side of his birthday, okay? I mentioned that before in some previous video in this series, and I'm mentioning it here again. And so, again, this is that same MO at exactly 9:26 a.m. in BC. This crash happened next door, right, in Alaska, right? And so that's just 1 minute off. That's just one digit off his birthday. And I also mentioned before that in the last year or so, he's been shifting his MO when he does, like in other words, when the cell tower, when I get these intense headaches that signify to me that it's a cell tower being hacked, when I get these, basically in the last year or so, a lot of the significant numbers that like it usually happens at a significant number on the clock. Like I said before, it could be a number, like it could be 9:27 on the clock, 5:12 representing my birthday, right? Or 3:05 representing the number of my current address, or could be some other significant numbers representing previous addresses we both used to live at before, or it could be like 112, which would be 112th Street. He used to live on 112th Street, which is a long thoroughfare, a long street in North Delta, BC, which is a suburb of Vancouver, right? He used to live there for a number of years, right? So then I'll notice that that'll be another significant numbers that would come up on the clock or on my watch when my intense headaches would happen, right? Signifying a cell tower hack. I mentioned this on some previous video, right? Well, this has been happening for a couple of years now, but in the last year or so, or at least the last 8 months or so, it's been a lot of times the significant number has been off by just one digit. In other words, instead of 112, it might be 111. Instead of 927 representing his birthday, it might be at 926 or 928. Instead of 512, it might be 511, right? You get the message, you get the picture, right? So basically, I think that he did that, just so that if I was keeping track of it, or if I had a witness, beside me during some of it, who could say that, oh yes, John said at exactly this time he got a headache, and this time, on this day, that day, whatever, and I'm the witness, blah blah blah, then that might be considered, more circumstantial evidence against my brother. So then I think my brother therefore shifted the time just by one digit for a lot of these significant digits, that he would that the cell tower hacks would occur at, and cause my intense headaches. I think he shifted the numbers by one digit, just so that technically it couldn't be held as evidence against him, because it's not a significant digit anymore, or at least it's not as many significant digits. If it happens at 926, right, then the authorities couldn't say it's happening on his birthday, on numbers representing his birthday, because it's off by one digit. But at the same time, because it is off just by one digit on so many of these, he would know that I would still know that it's him, because it's off just by one digit, right? So what are the chances of it being off just by one digit, so many times, right? So so basically, technically, it's not as many significant digits then, right? But it's still just by one digit off. It's still significant, right? Because it is just one digit off. And so, what are the chances of that happening? Just at random, right? So I think, and again, this has been happening for about the last year, or at least the last 8 months, right? This shift in MO, modus operandi, method of operation, right? This, I noticed this just like in the last year or last 8 months, that a lot of these would happen, whereas before they would be a significant digit, like I said, on 927 on the clock, 512 on the clock, 112, 305, whatever, right? Maybe another dozen or so of these significant digits, right? A series of significant digits, whereas before it would be right on, exactly. Well, in the last year or the last 8 months or so, it's been off usually by one digit, right? So I think the same thing happened. He did the same thing with that crash in 2020 in Alaska, and so that I think he picked 8:26 Alaskan time, or which is the same as 9:26 next door in BC. I think he picked it to do it at exactly at that time, so that it would be off just by one digit, but still. It's still two significant digits right on, right? Because his birthday is 927 and it was 926 in BC when this crash happened next door in Alaska. So basically the 9 and the 2 are still significant digits right on, and the 6 is only off by 1 from the 7, right? So again, right, I don't think those are coincidences. I think, again, these are so-called coincidences, not real coincidences. I think they were done intentionally to give me a sign that he was behind it. So that's that. Now I got a few more so-called coincidences surrounding that crash. Okay, that midair crash that I've been discussing now for several videos. I got a few more coincidences to mention about it, and obviously I'm gonna have to do a next video because we're almost at the 15-minute mark here in this one. So we're gonna stop here, and I'll continue on that same vein thread note. In the next video. So, see you soon. Thanks.